This book right here in my hands only has 32 pages, but I might not be too far off in saying that it is one of the most influential books you can read if you truly want to become a more virtuous person. This is Benjamin Franklin's book of virtues. Originally published in 1791, this book is a collection of all the virtues that Ben Franklin wanted to embody. In his larger autobiography, he wrote about the bold and arduous project of arriving at perfection, a journey he set out for himself as a young man. These 13 principles are the end product of countless amounts of hours spent in self-examination and deliberate thought from one of the brightest minds of all time. The virtues are: number 1, temperance; 2, silence; 3, order; 4, resolution; 5, frugality; 6, industry; 7, sincerity; 8, justice; 9, moderation; 10, cleanliness; 11, tranquility; 12, chastity; and 13, humility. Before I tell you about how he pursued each of these virtues and what exactly they mean, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and left a like on this video. Keep watching and leave a comment on what your favorite virtue is and how you're going to incorporate it into your life. And with that, let's begin. So really quickly, why did Ben Franklin even write this in the first place? Franklin had a moral compass that was not always fine-tuned. In his words, as I knew, or thought I knew, what was right and wrong, I did not see why I might not always do one thing and avoid the other. But I soon found I had undertaken a task of more difficulty than I had imagined. While my care was employed in guarding against one fault, I was often surprised by another. Habit took advantage of inattention. Inclination was something too strong for reason. So what he's saying here is when he was focused on building good habits in one area, he would fall back to his old ways in others where he wasn't paying attention. Now, how did he decide what virtues were worth pursuing? One of the things that bothered him when it came to self-improvement was that many writers would use one name for something, but it would have a million different definitions. If someone was talking about temperance, for example, some confined that to just eating and drinking, while others included the moderation of all pleasure, appetites, and passions. Because of this, Franklin decided to use more virtues, more names with fewer ideas, something that was easier for him to follow. He also wanted each virtue to build on top of the previous one, so if he mastered one, it would be easier to pursue the next. Again, each of these virtues was defined only by what he wrote. I would expand on them, but Franklin wrote them like this for a reason. The first virtue was, like we previously mentioned, temperance. To Franklin, this meant eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation. The second virtue is silence. Speak not, but what may benefit others or yourself. Avoid trifling conversation. The third is order. Let all your things have their places. Let each part of your business have its time. The fourth is resolution. Resolve to perform what you ought. Perform without fail what you resolve. 5. Frugality. Make no expense, but do good to others and yourself. Waste nothing. Number 6, industry. Lose no time. Be always employed in something useful. Cut off all unnecessary actions. The seventh virtue is sincerity. Use no hurtful deceit. Think innocently and justly. And if you speak, speak accordingly. 8, justice. Wrong none by doing injuries or omitting the benefits that are your duty. The ninth virtue is moderation. Avoid extremes. Forbear resenting injuries so much as you think they deserve. Number 10 is cleanliness. Tolerate no uncleanliness in body, clothes, or habitation. 11, tranquility. Be not disturbed at trifles, or at accidents common or unavoidable. 12, chastity. Rarely use venery, but for health or offspring. Never to dullness, weakness, or the injury of your own or another's peace or reputation. And lastly, the 13th and final virtue is humility. Imitate Jesus and Socrates. So with all these in mind, Franklin had to come up with a strategy for how he was going to pursue them. His strategy was to make a table with each of the 13 virtues along the rows, and each day of the week along the columns. Focusing on one virtue a week, he would mark down if he felt like that day had been a success, or if he fell short in that one virtue. All other virtues were ignored, except for the one that he focused on for that week. With the cycle lasting 13 weeks, he would practice each virtue deliberately at least 4 times a year. If this sounds impossible for you, don't worry. Once Franklin started using the system, he even noted, "I was surprised to find myself so much fuller of faults than I had imagined." But he makes an even more interesting comment later on. A perfect character might be attended with the inconvenience of being envied and hated, and that a benevolent man should allow a few faults in himself to keep his friends in countenance. He's basically saying that we can overdo it. If you're working on self-improvement to the point where you lose all your faults completely, you risk jealousy coming from your friends and acquaintances. A kind person, on the other hand, may still have some faults, but they're still probably going to be a whole lot smaller. He goes on to say that no qualities were so likely to make a poor man's fortune as probity and integrity. In other words, virtue. Franklin admitted he never quite fully obtained the values that he set out for himself, but there is a huge lesson nonetheless. He stated, "I was by the endeavor a better and a happier man than I otherwise should have been if I had not attempted it." We can learn that there is a certain amount of courage that it takes to even attempt something like this, even when we know we are going to fail. Being brave in life requires us to look in the mirror and ask ourselves if we're happy being the person that we are. or if we can see the person we might be able to become. In this book, Franklin is telling us to look for that person that we can become. The odds may not be in your favor, but in the end, it wasn't quite about reaching perfection anyway. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. My vision for this channel, and ultimately what I want to build, is a learning platform that can be an alternative to higher education. In theory, it would be all the things that they don't teach you in school, but they should. These videos include the things that I think will be the most relevant and important to learn for navigating life in the modern era. I'm also learning and part of this journey as much as anyone else, so let's enjoy the ride together. Thank you for taking the time to watch this all the way through. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.